Hey, everybody. Glad you're here tonight. Serious news. Yeah, glad you're here. Let's talk.
The American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. We're going to have a live stream tonight, just as normal, talking about world events. Obviously, we're going to talk about the very, very serious situation facing the world right now. But we're going to follow our normal routine, which is that I give my opening remarks, and that's about whatever it is we're talking about tonight, world events, etc. Then from there, we do a roll call, or I call you all out as I see you, names and locations. And then from there, I will answer your questions for the remainder of the show. So if there's something you would like me to talk about in the second half of our program, all you need to do is send me a Rumble rant or a super chat. Rumble rants are on the Rumble. Super chats are here on YouTube, Facebook. I can't see you on Facebook, so if you're on Facebook, you gotta send me. You gotta come onto Rumble. You gotta come onto YouTube. But that's the way we do things. So glad you all are here. Quick announcement. First announcement is the Center for Political Innovation. We are back in business and we are accepting memberships once again. So if you have not renewed your membership, go ahead and do so. If you have not joined, now is the time to join. We got a lot going on that you'll be hearing about pretty soon. Some big drops coming either tomorrow or next week, or not next week, or Tuesday. Some big drops coming up that are rather relevant in relation to today's events. So go ahead and join. On top of that, we're starting up the morning messages on the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel. And this is something we can do. It's about keeping people engaged. We're trying to get morning messages going. So if you would like to start your day with revolutionary hope and optimism, we urge you to subscribe to the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel. It's a great place to stay plugged in, stay engaged. Great stuff. And if you have a message to share with our community, we would urge you to make a morning message, and I will put the link for you to make a morning message. Hold on. I will put that link in the chat for you to submit your own morning message so that you can support other members of the community. If you want to sing a song or tell a story or read from one of our books or read from another book or anything you want to do to help people start their day with revolutionary hope and optimism, you can submit a morning message via this link to the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel. We'd like to have people share and keep people engaged. It's all about keeping people engaged. It's all about keeping our community intact, being there to support each other. So as I said before, first the opening remarks, then the roll call, then I will answer your questions for the second half of the show. So if you got something you want me to talk about in the second half of the show, send me a super chat or a Rumble rant. Super chats are on YouTube. Rumble rants are on Rumble. Give me something to talk about in the second half of our program. So here we are, folks. Donald Trump has won the election, and he is, at this point, set to be inaugurated on January 20th. One of the principal promises of his campaign was to end the war in Ukraine. He says the war in Ukraine never would have happened if he had been president. And he says that he will sit down and he will resolve the conflict immediately. And that's what the American people voted for. So as we're waiting for Donald Trump to take office on January 20th, Joe Biden decides to do something that is quite extreme. Joe Biden has authorized the Ukrainian government to launch long-range ATACMS missiles strikes into Russia. Now, Ukraine has already been attacking Russia. They've been attacking Russia with drones. They have the Kursk incursion. They've invaded Russian territory that they don't even claim. Ukraine was most likely responsible for that brutal massacre of children at a rock and roll concert at the event that took place in Russia. And the U.S. government basically announced they knew the attack was coming in order to intimidate and make clear where the attack came from. There was the brutal attack on the music hall that happened, with the U.S. government announcing ahead of time that it was going to happen. And now, at this point, we've got the announcement from the Biden administration that they are authorizing Ukraine to shoot long-range missiles into Russia. Now, France and Britain apparently were just waiting for Biden to make this announcement. They gave their authorization as well. And Russia has announced that if this happens, if long-range missiles do strike into Russia, if Russian cities or military targets are hit by long-range missiles, they will consider this not simply an attack from Ukraine. They will consider this to be an attack from NATO, because Ukraine is not capable of shooting these long-range missiles by itself. It's not. Ukraine is only capable of doing this with the direct oversight and assistance of the Western countries. And so this would basically constitute a direct U.S. NATO strike on Russia. And if this happens, Russia has made clear they would reserve the right to use nuclear weapons. And on top of that, they would retaliate against the NATO countries. And that would mean all-out war between the NATO alliance and Russia. Now, the NATO alliance, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the way it works, was formed after the Second World War. Any country that is a member, there is an agreement that if you attack them, all the countries that are attacked by it immediately go to war with anyone who's been attacked. Right? If France is a member of NATO, if somebody attacks France, all the NATO countries go to war with the country who attacked France. Right? If Germany's a member of NATO, so if Germany gets attacked, then America, Britain, France, they all go to war with whoever attacked Germany. And that's the NATO alliance, that if one of those countries goes to war, the whole NATO bloc goes to war. That's the treaty. And that's why Russia has not been thrilled about the notion of NATO getting closer and closer to their border, because of the fact that, those are countries that they can't retaliate against. If anything is done to them from a NATO country, Russia can't retaliate without going to war with all the NATO countries, without having a confrontation with the United States, France, Britain, Germany, all those countries. And after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia was promised that NATO would not move 1 inch eastward, that NATO wouldn't keep expanding. But NATO did keep expanding, and many former Soviet republics have joined the NATO alliance. And Ukraine had not joined the NATO alliance. Ukraine is right on Russia's doorstep. And until 2014, Ukraine had a neutral president, Viktor Yanukovych. Yanukovych was a president who was pretty balanced. He did business with Ukraine, or obviously being the president of Ukraine. He did business with the NATO countries, did business with Russia. And he kind of balanced the fact that in Russia, in Ukraine, there is a bit of division in the country, right? The people in the eastern regions, the Donbass, Odessa, Crimea, they very much are proud of the heritage of the Soviet Union. They very much miss the Soviet Union. They consider themselves to be Russian. They speak Russian in their households, etc. Whereas the people in the western parts of the country, they hate Russia, and they consider Russia to be responsible for all of Ukraine's problems, etc. Well, Viktor Yanukovych was the president of Ukraine, and in 2014, the United States violently overthrew Viktor Yanukovych and installed a fanatically anti-Russian government. At which point, the people in the eastern regions of the country declared independence. Donetsk, Lugansk, Odessa, they just said, nope, we're not part of Ukraine anymore. Crimea declared independence. And Crimea is a peninsula that has always been considered part of Russia, going back thousands of years. I mean, you read about the Crimean War, etc. And there's always been a Russian naval base in Crimea. It's a very strategic location. And it was part of the Soviet Union, and it was part of Russia in the Soviet Union. But then, after Stalin died, Khrushchev changed the borders, and he gave it to Ukraine. But at that point, Ukraine and Russia were both part of the Soviet Union, so it didn't really matter. You were just kind of redrawing the borders of the different republics. And then the Soviet Union fell, and Ukraine and Russia made a deal, which was that Crimea would become part of Ukraine, but Russia would keep its big, huge naval military base there. And that was an agreement that everyone was fine with. But then, when the United States violently overthrew the Ukrainian government with a group of Nazis, mind you, like the Privy Sector, the Azov Battalion, like literal Hitler-admiring people, violently overthrew the Ukrainian government. And at that point, then the people in Crimea said, all right, this military base is in question, and all of our jobs depend on this military base, and most of us work at this military base. And they took a vote, and the people of Crimea voted to join with Russia. I have been to Crimea. I have been to Yalta. I attended the Yalta Economic Forum in 2018, and I can tell you, Crimea is Russia. The people there consider it to be Russia. The people there are happy to keep doing business with the Russia military base. It's Russia. So Crimea joined with Russia. And then the other oblasts, Donetsk, Lugansk, they voted to secede from Ukraine. And Russia said, no, don't do that. And Russia actually arranged a negotiation process called the Minsk Agreement, where the Ukrainian government agreed to respect the right of the people in these regions to speak their own language, to vote for their own political parties like the Communist Party and the Party of Regions, and de-escalate the conflict and bring Donetsk and Lugansk, the Donbass area, back into the Ukrainian government. And that's what Russia wanted. If Russia was trying to conquer Ukraine, they would have just moved in right then. They didn't do that. In fact, they worked very, very hard to persuade the peoples of the Donbass to enter the Minsk agreement, the Minsk process, and not become, a separatist element, to get Ukraine to recognize them. And Ukraine did not implement the Minsk agreement. And Zelensky, the current president of Ukraine, was actually elected on a platform of implementing the Minsk agreement. Zelensky ran for president saying that he would bring the country back together and he would implement the Minsk agreement. And he won the election, and he didn't do that because he learned very quickly that Zelensky is not actually the president of Ukraine. Ukraine is actually run by NATO. It's actually run by the CIA and British intelligence and French intelligence. Ukraine is just a proxy of the NATO countries being utilized to attack Russia. That's all it is. And Zelensky learned that when he took office. And the Ukrainian government, there's this whole thing about we got to defend Ukraine's independence. Ukraine lost its independence in 2014 when the United States violently overthrew the Ukrainian government. And it was clear that Ukraine didn't have its independence when they elected Zelensky on a platform of fixing all of this and bringing the country together. And he took office and found out, oh, you're not allowed to do that because you're not really the president. The NATO intelligence agencies are, and that he and the military and the NATO intelligence agencies told Zelensky basically that he couldn't make peace with Russia. And then I continue to talk about, because they've taken the Wikipedia page down. They do not want you to know it exists, but it exists. And we are going to keep talking about this. From the time that the USA violently overthrew the Ukrainian government to the beginning of the special military operation, 8 years, the Ukrainian government was bombing Donetsk and Lugansk. And this is a monument in the People's Republic of Donetsk to all the children who have died at the hands of the US-backed government in Kiev. And I continue to bring this picture up because it infuriates me whenever I hear people beating their chest in this moralistic way. Oh, don't you care about the Ukrainians, Caleb? Yes, I do. And CNN also cares about them. But these are the children that have been dying for 8 years before the conflict even began that CNN doesn't care about. And even the Wikipedia page about the monument to them has been taken down because they don't want you to know they exist. The Ukrainian government that was forced on Ukraine by the United States in the 2014 coup, that regime is bloodthirsty and murderous, and it's been killing children for decades. And because it doesn't serve the hate Russia narrative, mainstream media never talks about them. These children's lives don't matter according to mainstream media. They just don't matter because they don't exist, because they were killed by NATO allies. Regardless, Russia moved in to protect the peoples of Donetsk and Lugansk after 8 years of bombing and food blockades, 8 years of dragging them into court for speaking their own language and giving them fines and tickets for speaking their language, 8 years of burning World War II memorials, 8 years of a food blockade, 8 years of drone strikes, 8 years of developing chemical weapons, biolabs that are specifically designed to target Russians and people of certain ethnicities, 8 years of planning chemical warfare against Russia. And this is now revealed. I mean, that the Ukrainian government was, they talk about weapons of mass destruction, the USA invading Iraq because of weapons of mass destruction. Well, it was admitted by Victoria Nuland that Ukraine had laboratories where they were developing chemical weapons to be used against Russians. This isn't according to Russia. This is according to Victoria Nuland. I will show you the video. Victoria Nuland and Marco Rubio, who's about to become our Secretary of State. I will show you, right? They said on the floor of Congress that biolabs were being developed. I will show you the clip if you don't believe it. And this is absolutely outrageous. And I will show you. I mean, the Ukrainian government was developing chemical weapons with which to attack Russia after subjecting the people of the eastern regions to all-out bombardment. And so what was Russia supposed to do? And Ukraine was talking about joining the NATO alliance. So if Ukraine struck Russia, Russia couldn't respond in any way unless they went to war with the United States. On top of that, Ukraine was talking about getting nuclear weapons. They were talking about nuclear proliferation. And at that point, Russia said, look, we got to do something about this. The fact that Ukraine was developing chemical weapons, bioweapons to attack Russia is admitted by the US government, right? I mean, if any country was developing bioweapons to attack America, we would be, in our minds, totally justified to attack them. And here we have this fanatically anti-Russian government right on their border developing biological weapons to attack Russia.
Biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine. Is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian.
Wrong clip, but let's talk about the clip where she talks about the biolabs, right? The biolab clip. Hold on. Tulsi Gabbard has a very good video on the biolabs as well. Yeah, here we go. Here's the clip. That's another clip where she's blaming any bio attack, saying it was Russia that did it, if there ever was one. But this is the clip where she talks about how the U.S. government was working with the Ukrainian government to develop biological weapons labs. Here we go. All right. Sorry, that was the wrong exchange between her and Rubio. All right. Are we ready? Okay. Here we go.
I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
There he says, does Ukraine have chemical and biological weapons? What does she say? If they don't, she should say no. But what does she say?
Well, I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
So yes, actually, that means yes. That means yes. That if they have they have biological research facilities that have stuff in it we really don't want the Russians to get their hands on. That sounds pretty obvious.
Weapons.
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information.
But yeah, that they admitted that they have biolabs where they were developing chemical weapons, and that was revealed. And then this is Tulsi Gabbard, and this is her reporting on the biolabs issue. I will show you what Tulsi Gabbard said about the biolabs issue. Here we go. This is Tulsi. This made them all really, really mad. This made everyone so mad at Tulsi, even though what she said was the truth.
Here are the undeniable facts. There are 25 to 30 U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine. According to the U.S. government, these biolabs are conducting research on dangerous pathogens. Ukraine is in an active war zone with widespread bombing, artillery, and shelling, and these facilities, even in the best of circumstances, could easily be compromised and release these deadly pathogens. Now, like COVID, these pathogens know no borders. If they are inadvertently or purposely breached or compromised, they will quickly spread all throughout Europe, the United States, and the rest of the world, causing untold suffering and death. So in order to protect the American people, the people of Europe, the people around the world, these labs need to be shut down immediately, and the pathogens that they hold need to be destroyed. Instead of trying to cover this up, the Biden-Harris administration needs to work with Russia, Ukraine, NATO, the UN to immediately implement a ceasefire for all military action in the vicinity of these labs until they're secured and these pathogens are destroyed. Now, in addition to all this, the U.S. funds around 300 biolabs around the world who are engaging in dangerous research, including gain of function, similar to the lab in Wuhan, where COVID-19 may have originated from. Now, after realizing how dangerous and vulnerable these labs are, they should have all been shut down 2 years ago, but they haven't. Now, this is not a partisan political issue. The administration and Congress need to act now for the health and well-being of every American and every person on this planet.
I mean, it just infuriates me that people make it sound like this conflict just came out of nowhere, right? Putin was just having a bad day and he said, I want to kill me some Ukrainians. All right, roll in the tanks. And it's like the USA violently overthrows the Ukrainian government. The Ukrainian government then starts slaughtering people in the languages where the people are sympathetic to Russia, in the regions where people are sympathetic to Russia, etc. Then that government starts developing chemical and biological weapons with which to kill the Russians. And the U.S. government sets up all these biolabs where they're actively planning and developing weapons to kill the Russians with. Then Ukraine announces, hey, we might get nuclear weapons. Why not? And maybe we'll join the NATO alliance so we can do anything we want to Russia and they can't strike back, or else they'll have World War III with the United States. And I mean, it's like how much was Russia supposed to tolerate? They held off 8 years after the USA violently overthrew the Ukrainian government. They held off 8 years before finally moving in with their special military operation. And here we are. It's 2024. And once again, Joe Biden is saying, oh, long-range missile strikes into Russia, that'll be fine. And Russia says, you do that. And if you shoot a long-range missile into Russia, right, you got Ukraine shooting drones into the country. You got Ukraine carrying out terrorist attacks at a music concert hall and killing all kinds of innocent people. You've already got all kinds of atrocities against Russia. But you shoot long-range missiles into us, we're going to retaliate not just against Ukraine, but against the West. And this could very, very easily escalate into nuclear war. Russia's nuclear first strike doctrine says that if their territory is directly attacked, if they face an attack on their territory, they have the right to respond with nuclear weapons. If they get invaded, if there's a blatant attack on their territory, they have the right to respond with nuclear weapons. If Russia gets hit with a long-range missile, then Russia is going to have to retaliate, and they are going to consider that an attack from the NATO alliance. So they're going to retaliate against NATO targets, and then NATO is going to retaliate against Russia, and then pretty soon there's mushroom clouds. People don't realize how dangerous this is, and I'm utterly shocked by the stupidity of some people's responses to this. They're just like, "Yay, we hate Russia." It's like, okay, let's just sit back here for a minute. Let's pretend that we all hate Russia too, right? Let's just pretend that we're all drinking the Kool-Aid and we think Putin is the most evil thing ever. Let's just pretend that for a moment. Is it smart to have a nuclear war with somebody that you consider to be so bad, just because you don't like Russian President Putin, just because you don't like the Russian government? Is it smart to escalate to an all-out nuclear confrontation with them? Is that smart? I don't think so. I mean, it's like these people have lost their. I mean, it's that Russia is going to have to respond. You shoot a long-range missile into Russia, Russia is going to retaliate, and that seems to be the game that the Western leaders are playing all over the world. It's like, how much can we force countries to take before they hit us back very, very badly? And you know what they're doing is they're playing with our lives as Americans, right? They're playing with our lives. I mean, that's what they're doing, right? And when Trump killed Qasem Soleimani, when Israel attacks the the Iranian embassy and consulate in Lebanon, and now with they had the circus concert, the Crocus auditorium concert, and they shot it up with the U.S. government basically announcing to Russia ahead of time that they did it, because they're saying concert halls and and all of that, and they basically announced that they were planning to do it to the American government. The American government basically announced to Russia they were planning to do it, that the United States was responsible. They were fleeing to the Ukrainian border, the terrorists who did it. The drone strikes into Russian territory, the Kursk incursion, marching into territory of Russia, and now this. This is just so much a provocation, and people don't take it seriously. People don't seem to realize that our lives are on the line. This could lead to an all-out nuclear confrontation, and the American people voted against this. Now, my question is this Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's plan to stay in office? It sounds wild. It sounds like, Caleb, that could never happen, but I'm honestly wondering, when Kamala Harris conceded the election to Trump, and the media just, after telling us that Trump winning would be the end of democracy and there were going to be death camps and Trump was just like Hitler and all of this. And then they just said, all right, Trump won. Oopsie daisy. And I'm just like, wait a second. And now I wonder if this is their plan to provoke World War III with Russia and declare war, and thus have the military establish, a state of war, and under those circumstances, block Trump from being inaugurated. And that may be their plan. And that sounds outrageous. And I certainly hope that's not their plan. But that very well might be their plan. It may be that they, push it to a situation where the United States and Russia are at war. And then from there, they announce that, we can't have an inauguration. We're in the middle of a war. And that would be absolutely crazy. Even during the U.S. Civil War, we had an election. We had an inauguration. So there would be no legality for that. You don't cancel elections in the United States because of war. Now, civil liberties go away in the context of war. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly go away in the context of a war. And, that's Japanese internment. We haven't declared war in this country since the Second World War, but you can still have elections during a war. And we have, even during declared wars, we still have elections. So I don't know what's going to happen here. I really don't know what is going to happen here. It's certainly disturbing to me. I don't know what to do about it. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about our work as CPI, as anti-imperialists, and on how important our work is, and how, at this point, the fact that Tulsi Gabbard could be our next director of national intelligence, we need to make sure that happens, because, she would, at least on some scale, not let things get to be this bad. Look, I don't know if you realize this at this point, but we just point this out. Right now, as of today, the U.S. government, which is funded by our taxpayer money, has spent $183 billion on the war in Ukraine since 2022. $183 billion. Now think about that, right? If you had $1 for every day between now and the birth of Jesus Christ, you would not have $1 billion. You realize that? Right? You know how much a million is, right? A million, right? A billion is 1,000 million. If I'm not mistaken. Yes. A A billion is 1,000 million. So $1 billion is $1,000 million. And we have spent $183 billion on this confrontation with Russia in Ukraine. $183 billion. Now you do the math and you ask yourself, how in the world is this not a crime? You look at America right now, all the things they tell us they don't have money for, all the roads falling apart. You know, I'll show once again. This was our situation out in Baltimore near Washington D.C. Remember this? Remember the bridge? Remember this? Right? This is America right now. This is the condition that our country is in right now. And at the same time, we're dealing with this. They've got $183 billion to pay for killing these kids some more. I mean, it's a crime. And you know, Ukraine was listed as one of the most corrupt countries in the world by the New York Times. They listed that they are one of the most notoriously corrupt countries in the world. And until this confrontation got going and they suddenly changed their tune, everybody knew that Ukraine was wildly corrupt. Ukraine is outrageously corrupt. And you know somebody's pocketing that money. You know Zelensky and his cronies and his inner circle are taking care of their family members and their cousins and their buddies. And that's our money that is just being siphoned off. Meanwhile, people are dying every single day on the battlefield. Every single day, people are dying, and Ukraine is dragging every last young man off the street. They're running out of people. They don't have people in Ukraine to fight. They've been dragging every last young man off the street to throw them into this meat grinder of a confrontation with Russia. Russia has had to spend God knows how much. They've lost a huge amount of lives in this confrontation. For what? Who is gaining here? This is theft and murder on a scale that should shock any decent moral person. How long are they going to keep this going? It's been 2 years now, and they haven't gotten enough out of this, right? We haven't had a nuclear exchange yet. You know, it's not enough. I mean, they can't just walk away with $183 billion and 100,000 people dead and all that. They can't walk away. They can't just go, that's enough. All right, that's enough. No, they just keep going. They just keep going with this and just keep lining their pockets and just keep siphoning off and suckling away all our money, all our tax money. Almost 3 years this has been going now. For what? For what? And our country's falling apart, and we can't afford it. And we just elected a president who said he was going to stop it. And so Biden is determined, all right, well, you know, I better start the war before I leave office. I don't know if you saw Biden, walking away. They asked Biden about this. They asked Biden why he was going to do this. And, I mean, this was the response. I don't know if you've seen this clip. It's just like, they're asking him like, hey, buddy, you're about to start World War III, and he's doing a presser where, he's standing around in the jungle. He's standing in a jungle in Brazil lecturing us about climate change, and he's standing in a jungle in Brazil lecturing us about climate change. And so he gives his spiel about climate change is bad or whatever. And then someone's like, hey, why did you authorize, long-range missile strikes into Ukraine? And he just walks off into the jungle. And there's no There's nobody there to greet him. Like, he doesn't know where he's going. He just starts walking off into the jungle, and there's no staffers there to tell him where to go or anything, and he just walks off into the jungle like a fool. I don't know if you've seen the clip. It's like, this is how bad things are in the country. I mean, this is the state of American government right now. This is where American government is at. So Biden's in Brazil for the APEC summit, talking with China and all of that. And then he gives a press conference and he lectures us all about global warming, standing in front of a jungle. And then this is how it ends. I'll try to get a version where you can hear the reporter asking him about the missiles, and he just walks off. Where was he going? Where was he going in that clip? He didn't know where he's going. He just strolls away. Just strolls away. You just started World War III, and he just walks into the jungle, not concerned. I mean, it is absolutely bizarre. I mean, it's not bizarre, it's horrifying. It's just completely and utterly horrifying on many, many levels that we have leadership that is this incompetent and this unconcerned about the result of its decisions. I mean, this is a level of what is going on here that is just, it's certainly something. It's certainly something. Here we go. Here's the clip where you can hear what he said. And it's just, he just ends his press conference by just walking off into the jungle. And he's not going anyplace. And yeah. Yeah. Here we go. This is Biden, the leader of the free world. This is the man who said we couldn't vote for Trump or else we'd lose our democracy. Yeah. And someone shouting at him a question about missiles in Ukraine. And he just walks off into the jungle. There's no staffers there to greet him. There's nobody there. And he's just, all right. I mean, you can't make this up. You cannot make this up. Doesn't answer any questions about it. Just walks off into the jungle. I mean, I mean, this is unbelievable. And this is where we're at as a country. And I mean, the last time Biden authorized long-range missiles into Ukraine, he backed away from it a couple days later. I hope that happens. That would be nice if that happens. But, if not, we're probably all going to die. Not exaggerating there. I mean, this is utterly crazy. Utterly crazy. I mean, they walked off with $183 billion of our money. Hundreds of thousands of people are dead. And they're just like, hey, it didn't go far enough. Let's have Ukraine launch a long-range missile into Russia. Crazy. I mean, look. People want to tell me, well, Caleb, Donald Trump is so awful, you can't support Trump. Things were bad at various times during the Trump administration. I mean, it was awful what he did with Iran, murdering Qasem Soleimani, and that was a brink of World War III situation. Absolutely horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And you know what? I'll just say this, right? And I'll just throw this out there. If there's going to be any chance of stabilizing things in the Middle East, Donald Trump needs to apologize for doing that. It's not going to bring Qasem Soleimani back, but I saw that Elon Musk was meeting on Trump's behalf with Iranian officials. I think the first step is going to have to be Donald Trump apologizing for murdering Qasem Soleimani. If he wants to de-escalate things in the Middle East, he needs to say, look, I was lied to. I was deceived by Mike Pompeo. I was deceived by John Bolton, people that stabbed me in the back. And I thought that was the right move. And, I apologize. Now, I wouldn't, I'm not going to guarantee you that's going to happen. But that would probably be the best move, because Iran cannot deal with Trump as it currently stands, right? Iran has this vendetta against Trump because of what he did. And, and the only way there can be any possibility, and I don't even know if that's enough. But it would be at least symbolic on some level. Donald Trump would have to say, look, I shouldn't have murdered Qasem Soleimani. That was a mistake. That led to an escalation. I shouldn't have done that. He should apologize that he was lied to by John Bolton. John Bolton, misled him about what that meant, about who Qasem Soleimani really was. And he should just say, look, I was tricked. I was deceived. But regardless, when Trump was in office, we had that moment with Qasem Soleimani. Horrible moment. Horrible moment. But, North Korea and the United States were getting along. Russia and the United States were not exactly getting along, but they weren't, there was no war in Ukraine. And now there are North Korean troops in Donbass fighting on Russia's side. North Korea has torn down the reunification monument. And to top it all off, we now have the war in Gaza, and Palestinians are dying around the clock, and they're being killed around the clock, and they're dying around the clock, and Kamala Harris, Trump presented himself as being more pro-Israel than Kamala Harris, but Kamala Harris couldn't even bring herself to pretend to be more pro-Palestine than Trump. And she celebrated the murder of the leader of the Lebanese resistance. She celebrated the murder of Nasrallah, and Kamala Harris just presented herself as so blatantly pro-Israel that the Muslim community couldn't vote for her. It's like we're in a situation here where it's like they're trying to tell us Trump is so bad. Trump is just so awful. How does it get worse than this? How does it get worse than this? You tell me what, it's supposed to be the end of the world when Trump takes office, right? It's supposed to be Donald Trump takes office and the earth bursts open and flames and lava come out. How does it get worse than this? Right? I'm waiting, right? Palestinians are dying around the clock in Gaza. The Ukraine war keeps going and just won't end. And now Biden's like, we haven't escalated it enough. Let's make it a direct war between Russia and NATO. Let's shoot off the missiles. How does it get worse at this point? This is very, very bad. This is very, very, very bad. Now, my opening remarks on here, I usually go for about an hour. We've been going for 48 minutes. So, I am going to make sure that this stream doesn't have a chapter 5 problem, because that's what many people have pointed out, the chapter 5 problem. You can buy all kinds of books that are all about, well, this is what's wrong in the world, and this is why it's wrong, and this is why, and you read chapter 1 and chapter 2 and chapter 3, and they're all about why it's wrong, what's wrong, why it's wrong, how it's wrong. But then you get to chapter 5, and it's what do you do about it? And it ends with blah, blah, I did not, blah, 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 and there's so many books like that are published. Well, I don't want this stream to have a chapter 5 problem. I'm telling you what we're doing. I am telling you what we're doing, right? Before Donald Trump took office, we launched the Peace MAGA campaign. And we were all over the streets of New York City with this banner. Only peace can make America great again, right? That's the beautiful banner designed by Peter Coffin. We were all over the streets of New York City with this banner, and we launched this campaign. Do you think the campaign is over now that the election is over? No, it is not. We are mobilizing for the inauguration. So we just loaded up the banner and the PVC pipes, and we're headed up to Central Park. Let's see how this goes.
Away, 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 away.
We have the banner out, and now we're getting the zip ties on. How's it going, guys?
All right.
All right.
1, 2, 3.
Beautiful. Nope, it's not gonna hold. So now we want to cut some poles in, cut the other pole in half. All right, so we're here at Trump Tower. Noah and I made it. We seem to have lost track of Phil along the way. He stopped to buy some water. Hopefully he's with us soon, but mission is accomplished. We got the banner to Trump Tower. Only peace can make America great again.
This is the man that we want Donald Trump to be. Here on this banner, you will see the greatest thing that Donald Trump did in his entire presidency. He went and became the first president to ever visit the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea. This is a country that's been technically at war with the United States since the 1950s.
Donald Trump shaking hands with oligarchs told you we're our enemies. They told you these people are horrible. They told you these people are terrible, that they will never do anything good for us. There's a reason for that. It's called money. It's called power. They want to weaken you mentally. They want to capture your spirit, stomp you out, and tell you, why bother? Why get out of bed in the morning? Why do anything worthwhile? No. Understand, peace is possible, but you must give it a chance. Giving peace a chance is giving yourself a chance.
We are here to say that only peace can make America great again. And that what Donald Trump did on North Korea, that was awesome. And we want that to continue. We want more peace negotiation. We want more trade. We want more diplomacy.
The real America is not with the bankers. It's not the criminals on Wall Street.
We don't control our government anymore. And our republic is being run by powerful forces that are very much unelected or subverting our democracy.
Rebuild America. Rebuild our country instead of bombing countries around the world. We need Donald Trump to stand up to the military-industrial complex. We need Donald Trump to stand up to the war lobby.
We want to put America first and not the criminals who are lining their pockets on Wall Street with American taxpayer money to go bomb children overseas. Believe the oligarchs at your own peril.
So we did that. That was how we launched it at Trump Tower. And the next stop for it, we did it at the New York Public Library. That was our next stop. And we did it again at New York Public Library with members of the Kodan organization, a Japanese American Christian group, came out to help us. And here's what we did at the New York Public Library. Hold on.
Can make America great again.
Only peace can make America great again.
Only peace can make America great again.
Only peace make America great again.
Only peace can make America great again.
Only peace make America great again.
And when Donald Trump met with Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, and moved towards unity on the Korean Peninsula, bringing together the Korean people, that was a great step forward.
We've had already 3 wars going on as we speak. Every morning, someone is dying in parts of the world right now in these 3 wars. The Hamas and Israel, as we know, Ukraine and Russia situation, it's costing over $6 billion in money your tax dollars.
What do you think of when you see that banner?
Which we
What
did
do I
not
think
have
of?
Yeah.
when Trump
Donald
was
Trump?
in office.
Do you think he could be a peace president?
I'm not sure.
We don't need that.
I don't think that Trump would bring peace in the world at all. I think he would bring total chaos. But it's interesting to know this.
Are you worried about World War III?
Yes and no. Yes, because, well, us, Russia, and would basically destroy most of the world.
Right now, we don't even have federal FEMA money to support in our country, Florida, North Carolina. And people are hungry there. And your private donations, not the government, is being used right now.
We are talking today about making America great through peace. Take a look at this banner. What kind of emotion does it instill in you? At war with North Korea.
It's about negotiations. What do you think?
It seems pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah. That seems pretty good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they make friends, right? I mean, yeah.
We are out here to say we want Donald Trump to be a peace candidate. We want him to be a peace president.
So then, after we did it at New York Public Library, thanks to our friend Phil, shout out to Phil, we found out very last minute that Donald Trump was going to be at Madison Square Garden to have a huge mega rally to close out his campaign. So what did we do? We went to Madison Square Garden. So we're here on 34th Street, and the crowds have lined up. They're going in to see Trump speak. We've got our banner. We're handing out our palm cards, spreading the message.
Like a concert, but bigger. I see people, I see the lines of people going block after block after block after block. And it makes you wonder, is the media, the mainstream media, really telling you the truth about how unpopular Donald Trump actually is?
This administration is evil, and we need to bring America back to and make America godly again. Make America great again.
Only peace can make America great again. Only peace can make America great again. This was a great moment when Trump talked to Kim Jong-un and started the process of peace on the Korean Peninsula. And we want to see peace not just with North Korea, but with Russia, with China, with many countries around the world. It is outrageous that billions of dollars is being spent on prolonging the war in Ukraine when our people can't get relief in North Carolina. People are left behind in Georgia and North Carolina. They can't get the relief they need. This is outrageous. Our government is more concerned with waging wars around the world than for caring for our own people. That we need a president who will put America first, a president who will bring peace around the world. Only peace can make America great again.
Yeah, you think Trump could be a peace president?
I think he can, as long as he surrounds himself with people who have peace in mind. My concern, I'm a voter, I'm concerned about everything. He's surrounding himself with a lot of people from big tech, and big tech has pretty much been now part of the military-industrial complex, so that's slightly concerning, but I think if Trump surrounds himself with good people, I think so.
I appreciate Trump and all his efforts.
You like the banner, huh?
I do.
Yeah, are you worried about war, the danger of war?
I am, and I know I'm confident that Trump can put an end to it.
They're marching us toward World War III, and they're taking our freedoms away. While they do it, we have got to stand up. Kamala Harris represents the most vile factions of the deep state, the regime change apparatus.
Yeah, what do you think about how Kamala Harris, I mean, it seems like she's locking up her political opponents, trying to put people in jail, trying to put Trump in jail so she can win the election?
They'll do anything to stay in power.
You're a Kennedy fan, I can see, huh?
I am, yes.
Yeah, he's bold, sticking up about the vaccines and all of that.
He is, but I think it's important. When you have a lot of mainstream publications who refuse to report on a lot of the stories that people have, I think it only adds more validity to what Kennedy's been saying about big pharma, big ag.
This is a man of peace. This is a man that can do it. This is a man that can make things happen. Everybody say war, war, war. This man is for peace, he's for unity, he's for the black, he's for the white, he's for everybody. This is a man I like. Don't worry about what the fake media say. 100% the right man for the job.
We want peace between all different races and nationalities of the world.
This is how they are. I'm here advocating peace and he's calling me a Nazi. Didn't the Nazis start a big war? Didn't the Nazis take people's freedom away? This is how they are. This is exactly how they are. You're a Nazi if you want peace. This is how sick they are. You're standing here saying you want peace, and he's calling us Nazis for wanting peace. I'm standing here for peace, and they call you a Nazi. This is how sick the woke left is. It's Nazism to want peace. I'm a patriot. I love my country, and loving your country means you don't want a war. I am a patriot. I love America, and I don't want World War III. Only peace can make America great again. Trump wants to negotiate. He wants to trade with countries around the world rather than bombing them. He wants to end these insane sanctions that are weakening the dollar around the world. And he wants to open up trade and friendship. Peace starts with trade and doing business.
Obama couldn't do it. Bush couldn't do it. He did it. For that reason, I'm giving my vote for him. I'm from New York City here. I'm voting for him.
About yourself, you and I go back to Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah, we go back to Occupy Wall Street. I started off with the Jersey City Peace Movement. We're all about saying no to wars. And that's why I've come out to stand here with this sign, because World War III is a bad thing to get ourselves involved with. And seeing who Kamala Harris these days is surrounding herself with, the likes of Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney and these neocon warmongers that just won't leave us alone.
What do you think? What do you think?
Excellent. Excellent.
That was a great moment when he met with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, he has the respect of people around the world, unlike Kamala.
Absolutely.
No one has any respect for her.
I say America first, not Ukraine first. I say America first, not Israel first. Only peace can make America great again. Only peace can make America great again. This is the... No problem. How are people liking it? Good? He's a deal maker, and this should just be the beginning. I can't wait until Donald Trump shakes hands with Putin. I can't wait until Donald Trump shakes hands with Xi Jinping. I can't wait until Donald Trump shakes hands with the Iranians and with the Cubans all around the world. Only peace can make America great again. And it's time that we do business. There's a whole new economy in the world. If you look at the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, all these countries are rising up from poverty and building new railways and all that. We should trade with them. We should get some of that money for America. America shouldn't be trying to lock the world out. Our dollar is losing value because of this silly policy.
All right. So that's what we've been doing in the lead up to the election. And we still have this banner. We still have it. We are bringing it to the inauguration. But not just that. We are getting a new banner. And this won't be the new banner, but this is what the new banner will be about. Right? Right now is the time for a bridge connecting Alaska to Russia. Now is the time. Now is the time. We need to build a bridge over the Bering Strait. It needs to happen, right? Needs to happen, and it's time, right? We need to connect the United States to the east economically and pivot the United States away from the NATO countries. And so not only are we bringing our banner that says only peace can make America great again to the inauguration. That's not the only banner that we are bringing to the inauguration. We are also going to have a whole new banner that is still being designed about the peace bridge connecting Alaska to Russia over the Bering Sea. And we're going to call it the Peace Bridge. And we're going to have a special pamphlet. You know, we have this pamphlet we already wrote. We've been widely distributing. We've distributed 1,000 copies of it at the Libertarian Convention, 1,000 copies at the DNC. Do you believe in growth? Why Russia and China keep rising while U.S. society stifles innovation. Well, we are printing a whole new pamphlet about a new. It's going to be about a new day for America, of a new beginning for the world with the Trump inauguration. We're going to distribute thousands of copies of a new glossy pamphlet about Trump and about the Peace Bridge at the inauguration. And we're doing that. We are getting ready. We are getting ready to swing into action. And we have got to defend Tulsi Gabbard. as she goes through the confirmation hearing process. We have got to show in the streets that people support Tulsi Gabbard, and that the deep state, which will try to block her from being the director of national intelligence, they've got to be opposed. We've got to build mobilizations in the streets showing support for Tulsi Gabbard. And there's going to be a very big drop from CPI, probably tomorrow, maybe Tuesday at the latest. And I will tell you more about that. I can't say too much about it, but you're going to like it. And you'll see we've put a lot of work into something that is going to be happening very soon. So keep your eye out for that. And that will make everything make sense. We have a 90-day plan leading up to the inauguration. And we have already redone our website. You can join CPI on our website. But while we're here, I hate to go negative, but shout out to Noah. Noah is our member in Boston. Noah's a great guy. You saw him in the video earlier speaking. And Noah made me aware that, while CPI, you've seen what we've been doing, right? We've been out in the streets. Only peace can make America great again, etc. This is what the communist groups have been doing. This was Saturday in Boston, and I saw this, and I'm just so glad I don't call myself a communist anymore, because this is not what needs to happen, right? This is what happened, right? While CPI, Center for Political Innovation, you saw what we were just doing. We were marching around, only peace can make America great again. We have this booklet, Do You Believe in Growth?, about why Russia and China keep rising while U.S. society stifles innovation. We're out there trying to address the danger of a new world war, the dropping living standards, trying to rally the American people against imperialism. But this is what the communist groups, this is what the Revolutionary Communist Party, the Party of Socialism and Liberation, the Communist Party USA, this is what they are doing these days. This is why we can't be communists anymore, because this is what communists do, and it's stupid.
Action to the National Men's March. This was in Boston today. A group of anti-abortion rights protesters clashing with counter-protesters, with police arresting multiple people. Mary Marcos has the latest.
More than 100 men marched against abortion from Planned Parenthood to the Boston Common.
The men came out to support the women that are facing unplanned pregnancies, and we're here to speak for the unborn.
Barricades kept at bay the same number of counter protesters. Supporters of reproductive freedom wearing big red noses and playing circus music to mock their message.
Abortion is health care, and the church and the state have no business telling women what to do with their bodies.
The majority of men believe in women's rights. The majority of men think that their wives and their daughters and their sisters and their mothers have a right to determine what happens to their bodies. And these men apparently don't.
Specialized Boston police units on scene were dressed in riot gear with batons in hand. Demonstrators started to clash as the annual Men's March moved downtown. Boston police say they arrested 9 people on disorderly charges near Kenmore Square.
We're obviously in quite divided times right now, and the city has always been a space where freedom of speech leads to folks from all different views expressing their views, and it's the job of our officers to make sure that everything on all sides of all different persuasions is safe for everyone.
Now, the Catholic Action League is calling this a direct attack on their First Amendment rights. They're urging the state attorney general and the Suffolk County district attorney to press criminal charges.
Right. So just so you know, we're on the brink of World War III. Our living standards are going down. Working families are struggling to pay their bills. Our bridges are collapsing. America is falling apart. And the communist groups are thinking, now, what kind of activism can we engage in? The Revolutionary Communist Party, the Bobavakian people are thinking, what can we do? How can we intervene in this situation? And the Party of Socialism and Liberation, Brian Becker with his huge billion-dollar building, and the People's Forum, and the Communist Party USA with all their funding and their offices, and they're all sitting there. What can we do? I know there's a group of 100 men, Roman Catholic men who are opposed to abortion, that are going to walk down the street in Boston. Let's assemble and dress like clowns and beat them up. That's what communists do in America right now. Do you understand why we're not communists anymore? This is what it means to be a communist. This is an utter insult to the entire history of the communist movement. This is what a communist looks like in America. They basically are saying, screw working families, screw the Palestinians, screw the danger of a new world war. We've got to make sure that 100 Roman Catholic men who are opposed to abortion can't walk down the sidewalk in Boston. And keep in mind, Massachusetts is a very liberal state. They're not going to outlaw abortion in Massachusetts. They might outlaw abortion in Alabama. They might outlaw abortion in Texas or Georgia. They are not going to outlaw abortion in Massachusetts, all right? The land of Teddy Kennedy and John Kerry is not going to outlaw abortion. But, the woke left, they're not triggered by the FBI raiding the homes of the Uhuru movement and trying to make it illegal to be anti-war and terrorizing the Uhuru movement. They don't care about that. They're not triggered by people losing their jobs. They're not triggered by spending $183 billion on Ukraine. That doesn't matter to them, right? That's just, that's just fighting for freedom or whatever. They're not bothered that we're spending money on foreign wars while this is happening, right? That this doesn't cause them any concern. No reason to protest over this. No concern here. But they're really upset that 100 guys who are Roman Catholic are planning to walk down the street in Boston. And so their response to this, on top of that, they just can't stand that 100 men who are against abortion are going to walk down the street in the middle of a major city, right? It's not like this is the Ku Klux Klan in hoods. These are dudes who are Roman Catholic wearing suits and ties saying, I'm opposed to abortion. And they're walking down the street. And so their response is to dress up like clowns, literally like clowns. I'm not saying that their outfits look like clowns. They are literally dressing up as clowns. They are not looking stupid and I'm saying they look clownish. They are literally dressing as clowns. Right? I'm not calling them clowns. They are calling themselves clowns. They dress up as clowns and play silly musical instruments and then get into fistfights with them and get arrested. That is what they have decided should be the focus of anti-imperialism and communism in America, right? And if you can't understand why these people are an utter disgrace, why I have spent so many of these streams yelling and ranting against these people, this is why, right? We're on the brink of World War III, and they don't give two shits. They're mad that 100 Catholic guys put on suits and ties and walk down the streets of Boston. That is what the Party of Socialism and Liberation, the Communist Party, the Revolutionary Communist Party, the DSA, the Democratic Schizophrenics of America, the Democratic Sociopaths of America. This is what they're worried about. They are so upset that 100 anti-abortion Catholic dudes walked down the streets of Boston. They're just so upset. They're just so triggered by this. I mean, does this bother you? Does this bother you? Look, I'm just telling you, in my experience, generally when I see anti-abortion protesters, they tend to be carrying images of mutilated fetuses, and that is disturbing to look at, right? That's pretty gross. The bloody fetus pictures, I don't want to see that. That's a little R-rated, not appropriate for children. But these guys don't even have any of those. These guys are marching down the street with signs, signs. What does this guy's sign say? It says, please stop. Please stop. Personhood now. I mean, and you're in Boston. They're not going to outlaw abortion in Boston. Like, why in the world is this an issue to go and protest about? Again, they were silent when the FBI terrorized the Uhuru movement. Silent about Ukraine, neutral in Ukraine. But this is, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then their way of doing it, they can't even look responsible as they advocate it. They can't even look like responsible adults. They literally dress up as clowns while they do it. Are you understanding why we have to not be communists anymore? Like, look at this. This woman's got her arms up in the air, right? And she's like dancing in front of the riot police. Do you see this? She's got her arms up. She's dancing in front of the riot police, right? And, you know, I don't think I'm going to change these idiots' minds, right? I spent my entire adult life. Yeah, we held a rally for Uhuru in Boston. All these groups refused to attend. Exactly, right? There you go, right? And like, you know, I'm not expecting these people to change. But what bothers me, and I really hope there's a lot of Muslims who want to stop the bombing of Gaza, want to support the Palestinians, and so they write checks to the Party of Socialism and Liberation. And I understand they're doing it. They're organizing the Palestine rallies. But they really should be writing checks to the Center for Political Innovation, because by writing checks to Brian Becker, this is what you are paying for. You are paying for this buffoonery, right? I mean, you know, you're funding an evil and out of touch agenda. This is what communist groups are doing right now, right? And you people say to me, Caleb, why are you so mad at them? I'm mad because there's a real moment here where those of us who are really anti-imperialist have a real role to play. And this is what these clowns literally have decided to do. And it's infuriating. Meanwhile, the Uhuru movement, Chairman O'Malley and Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, they could be in federal prison pretty soon. We don't know what's going to happen at their sentencing. I'm headed to Florida December 15th for their sentencing in federal court in Tampa. And I'm seriously worried about what could happen. They could possibly go to prison. I hope they get probation. They weren't convicted of being Russian agents. They were only convicted on the conspiracy charge. There's no sentencing guidelines. They shouldn't do any time in prison because they didn't commit any crime, and the jury agreed. You know, it's an outrageous case. These people won't do anything for the Uhuru movement, but they're out there dressing up and putting red noses on their faces because they are just so triggered that a bunch of Catholic guys don't want fetuses to be aborted. I mean, do you see how wrong this is, right? I don't want to get completely negative here, but it's like, and on top of that, let me just add that some of the people that used to be in our circles have decided that that they want to pivot back into working with these clowns, right? That's the same people that were talking about MAGA communism a year ago have now decided, you know what, that's where it's at. That's who I want to be. Right? I mean, MAGA communism in and of itself was not strategic because MAGA people hate communism and communist people hate MAGA. But the very same people that were going around talking about we're MAGA communists are now deciding they want to be with the clown circus. They want to be part of the clownter protest. You just saw. I mean, this is again, and they wonder why is the Center for Political Innovation important? Why is our organization important? Our organization is important because nobody else is doing it. Nobody else was there in front of the federal courthouse with the Uhuru movement, but we were there. I was standing next to Jill Stein. I gave a statement to the press. Jill Stein was there, right? You know, John McCarthy from our organization was there. You know, the former city council member of New York City, Charles Barron, was there. But where were these people? They've completely abandoned the Uhuru movement and they're going to join the Stop Trump circus now. And then they're attacking us. Caleb, you're tailing Trumpers. I'm tailing Trumpers by holding up an image of Trump shaking hands with Kim Jong-un. I'm tailing Trumpers by saying that Tulsi Gabbard should be the one running our intelligence agencies, not the lunatics that are running them right now, not Victoria Nuland. Like, I'm telling you people, there's a reason that our organization is so important, right? I'm going to put on, forgive me if you've seen it on the recent streams, but I'm going to put on a video I recently made about CPI and why we're important and the work that we do. And then I'm going to start answering your questions. I don't see any super chats, so send in some super chats if you got them. And yeah, I will answer your questions. But yeah, join the Center for Political Innovation. Go to our website, cpiusa.org. Become a member. Become part of this. We are the anti-imperialists, and we are mobilizing to go to D.C. for the inauguration to support Donald Trump and to do mass anti-imperialist outreach on that day. We may be having an event that evening. We don't know exactly. Details are still in the works. Major drop coming out later this week. Hopefully tomorrow, maybe the next day. Stay tuned for that. A lot is in the works. Our organization is marching ahead.
More infrastructure, we need to build up our country. No degrowth, no war in Ukraine. We need to stop all movements toward nuclear war. For my kids, for your kids, for all children in this whole planet. They want to send 17 and 18-year-old poor boys and girls from rural America to go die in a war for Taiwan. Taiwan's a long ways away.
I refer to yet another story. And this is a story that any of us who grew up in the Christian tradition or the Jewish tradition or the Islamic tradition probably had hammered into our heads when we were kids. And the story is about a man named Noah.
To the movies, and I go downtown.
Did I say anything about the Center for Political Innovation? I want to, because these comrades were some of the first out of the gate. When this attack happened, they were first out of the gate. They didn't ask any questions or anything like that. They were the first out of the gate, and not only in words. They began to take actions everywhere they were located. We can see the actions they were involved in, defending the WW3 and opposed to what the FBI was doing.
And the story is that Noah got a message from God that a giant storm was going to come. That storm would be so massive that it would lead to flooding. And so Noah heard this message about a flood, and he started building an ark, started building a ship so that his family and his people would be safe when the flood came.
And we want to see peace not just with North Korea, but with Russia, with China, with many countries around the world. It is outrageous that billions of dollars is being spent on prolonging the war in Ukraine when our people can't get relief in North Carolina. People are left behind in Georgia and North Carolina. They can't get the relief they need.
She also has some connections to the Center for Political Innovation, which is a very pro-Russian outfit run by a man called Caleb Maupin.
The global imperialist system is oppressing people across the planet, and it's also oppressing people right here. We are against the imperialist system. We are for a new America where working families have what they need.
Support sending billions of taxpayer dollars to Nazis in Ukraine to start a nuclear war with Russia. China is not our enemy.
I need you to leave, please, ma'am.
China's not our enemy. Russia's not our enemy.
Out, please.
No more money for rich men's wars.
Peace with Russia. Peace with China. Peace with Russia. Peace with China. Peace with Russia. Peace with China. We need to reinvest in the United States. We need to stop bailing out these speculators on Wall Street and these creeps who keep sending us to war.
He got this message, and despite the fact that nobody agreed with him, despite the fact that everyone wasn't going along with him, he started building that ark.
Peace with Russia. Peace with China. Peace with Russia. Peace with China.
Peace with Russia. Peace with China.
Peace with Russia. Peace with China. Peace with Russia. Peace with China. Peace with Russia. Peace with China. Peace with Russia.
Houthis are heroes. Houthis are heroes. Houthis are heroes.
He wrote it in 1927. This is what he wrote. In a very short time, in China's central and southern provinces, several 100 million peasants will rise like a mighty storm, like a hurricane, a force so swift and violent that no power, however great, will be able to hold it back.
They are more concerned about enabling Israel to kill Palestinians than they are in making sure that Americans have hospitals to go to when they're sick or have paved roads.
You want American boys to fight and die? For what? In China? In Taiwan? No. Let's fix our government right here at home to provide for working people.
I went to cover Bernie rallies, talked to Bernie supporters. I talked to Trump supporters at Trump rallies, and I saw the economy, And I saw the stock market, and I saw the suffering, and I said, God damn it, if no one else is going to build a ship, I need to.
Before we go to the roll call, I do want to show one more clip. Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, has spoken up regarding the situation in Ukraine with the missiles. I hope this has subtitles. I think it does. So.
Fíjense ustedes, hasta ahora que estamos aquí, los gobiernos de Estados Unidos, Francia y Gran Bretaña, la Santa Alianza del Mal, acaban de aprobarle al nazi criminal de Zelensky en Ucrania que utilice sus misiles y cohetes de largo alcance para atacar a nuestra hermana Rusia. Estoy diciéndoles, un momento definitorio. Yo podría decirles a ustedes que han entrado en la fase de locura el imperialismo norteamericano, en la fase de venganza. Cuidemos Venezuela, cuidemos nuestra tierra, nuestra paz.
Yeah, Nicolas Maduro is already speaking up about how crazy this is. So just wanted to share that. All right, names and locations, folks. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us? Who is with us? Names and locations. Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Philip High is out of the ER and at home resting. Bob in Troy, New York. Connor is in Colorado. China seasoned noob. Tatiana is in Fort Worth, Texas. Chad in Spokane, Washington. Noah says, get well soon, Phil. Stephen R. in Sacramento. Ryan in Kansas City. South Africa, Master Jack. Steve in Boston. Singapore. Boston, Massachusetts. Noah. Alex in Brazil. Caleb in Ann Arbor. Anthony in Detroit. Ian in the Yukon. Diana in Orlando, Florida. Welcome, Diana. Names and locations. Names and locations. Laura in San Antonio, Texas. Patrick in Maine. Stephen in Birmingham, Alabama. Penny in Minnesota. Lawrence Johnson in Chicago. Austin, Texas. Gala. JT24 in Mississippi. Sherry in Cape May. Gabriel in Peru. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Pyongyang, North Korea, barbecued pork. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Names and locations. St. David's, Bermuda. Denver in Minnesota. Welcome, Denver. Good to have you with us. Names and locations. Anybody else? Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us? Who's with us tonight? Names and locations. Anybody else? Names and locations. Who is with us? Who is with us? Names and locations. I'm sure it's just paused for a minute, and there'll be a bunch pouring in 1 second. JT24 in Mississippi. Names and locations. All right. Perth in Western Australia. Sherry in Cape May. Welcome, Sherry. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. the Faces of Arabia, or the Fairs of Arabia, in Birmingham, England. Birmingham, right? Peace Bridge. That's right. We are going to promote the Peace Bridge, right? I am very, very excited. Patch in Arizona. Patch in Arizona. Good to have you with us. Patch in Arizona. Patch in Arizona. William Murphy is in Virginia. Welcome, William. Good to have you with us. Welcome. Anybody else? Names and locations. Names and locations. Now, folks, I'm glad you're watching, but now is the time in the show where I answer your questions. I answer super chats on YouTube, and I answer Rumble rants on Rumble, but I have no Rumble rants on Rumble to answer, and I have no super chats on YouTube to answer. So if you have something you want me to talk about, by all means, send a super chat or send a Rumble rant, because I'm here to answer your questions. That's why I'm here. You know, pitch me a softball and let me swing it out of the park, or shoot me a fastball and let me also swing it out of the park. Give me something to talk about, right? Give me something to talk about. Give me something to react to. That's largely what the second half of our show tends to be about. It tends to be me reacting to what people say, answering people's questions, etc. I know we're all on edge about the international situation. I am at a shock. Could Tulsi do anything to lose your support? Now, that's an interesting question, because it points to what I've been trying to get people to understand from the beginning. Tulsi could do one thing to lose my support, and that would be on the wrong side of the contradiction. Because I do not view history in terms of good guys versus bad guys. I view history as a struggle with the balance of forces, right? If the U.S. Civil War was going on, could Lincoln have done anything to lose your support? Yes. Join up with the South. And our support for Abraham Lincoln in the U.S. Civil War was not based on Lincoln being a good guy, because you could argue that he wasn't. I think he was, but he changed. Our support for Lincoln was due to the fact that the division in the U.S. Civil War was over the question of slavery. And Lincoln became a reluctant abolitionist because he wanted to restrict the power of the slave owners. We got Devin in West Virginia. Shout out to you. And that's the point. It's about actual social forces that are clashing with each other. If Tulsi Gabbard was on the wrong side, you can be sure I would not be supporting her. My support for Tulsi Gabbard is because there is a division in the ruling class right now, and she is very clearly on the right side of that division, the side that is less aggressively in favor of imperialism. What is the evidence that Tulsi is on the correct side? All right. Well, I showed one video earlier. This is the video that they were all screaming for her to be arrested for. We'll put it on. This is Tulsi Gabbard talking about biolabs.
Here are the undeniable facts. There are 25 to 30 U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine. According to the U.S. government, these biolabs are conducting research on dangerous pathogens. Ukraine is in an active war zone with widespread bombing, artillery, and shelling, and these facilities, even in the best of circumstances, could easily be compromised and release these deadly pathogens.
Now, would you like someone like that in charge of the intelligence agencies, or somebody who wants to imprison people for saying that in charge of the intelligence agencies? Oh, but while we're at it, let's show some other great things that Tulsi has done, right?
Welcome back to Lead, our world lead now. A desperate plea for help. 7-year-old Bana Alabed has become the face of innocent civilian suffering in Syria's deadly civil war. The young girl is now safely living in Turkey with her family. But earlier today, she tweeted a message to President Trump, quote, "I beg you, can you do something for the children of Syria? If you can, I will be your best friend. Thank you." Unquote. This comes as a fragile ceasefire between Syrian government forces and rebel factions is holding for now. Joining me now in a CNN exclusive is Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii. She just returned from a secret trip to Syria. Congresswoman Gabbard, thanks for coming and sharing your story with us.
Aloha, Jake. Good to be with you.
So you were in Syria for 4 days. Did you meet with President Bashar al-Assad?
I did. You know, my reason for going to visit Syria was really because of the suffering of the Syrian people that has been weighing heavily on my heart. I wanted to see if there was...
So that's an example of Tulsi being on the correct side. You just saw her video about Biolabs. Oh, but here's another example of Tulsi Gabbard being on the correct side that I wrote and that inspired me to write an entire book about. You may remember this.
She never did it.
Where I ran the Kingdom Jobs and
That Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response?
as the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model.
Oh, and you're also asking me what other evidence do we have that Tulsi Gabbard is on the right side? Well, this is not Tulsi Gabbard speaking. This is the other side making clear what they think of Tulsi Gabbard.
And we haven't even gotten to Tulsi Gabbard potentially having access to national security information. And Russia loves it, loves her.
And I actually think almost more than Matt Gaetz, Tulsi Gabbard's appointment is devastating. And Tulsi Gabbard's nomination, as much as she says that she's an anti-war person, she's not.
Yeah.
She supports very pro-war individuals.
Including abroad. In Syria.
And let's be...
Yes, she talks to countries that the CIA is trying to overthrow. So that's how they feel about her. But I can't get over how dumb this statement right here is.
Tulsi Gabbard potentially having access to national security information.
You do realize she already has access to national security information. She was a member of the U.S. Congress, and she's an active duty lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves. Members of Congress have security clearances. She was already in the military, high ranking before that. Of course, she has access to national security information. Like, what in the world is this? They think she doesn't have access?
Gabbard potentially having access to national security information.
Like, how can they say that? Of course she has access. She already has access to national security information. That's like the dumbest statement. I mean, that takes the cake. That takes the cake. You know, absolutely. Absolutely. But let me, and I do appreciate the questions that keep coming in. I do see we have one Rumble rant, which I will get to. So I guess I'll do the Rumble rant first. Do you think Netanyahu will be charged with war crimes? War crimes? No, I don't. Because I think the International Criminal Court, in order to maintain its credibility, every so often it starts investigating the United States. Every so often it'll charge, it'll charge somebody aligned with the United States. They don't do anything about it. remember that the only people the International Criminal Court has ever convicted have all been African. And I don't think the International Criminal Court, I don't think we're going to see Netanyahu in The Hague. Just not going to happen. But could he possibly get arrested in Israel? I think so, because there is turmoil very intensely brewing in Israel right now. And it seems like in Israel, a lot of people want him out of office. And he was already under investigation for corruption. I think there's a chance that he could be forced from office in Israel. And if he doesn't go peacefully, if he doesn't go willingly, they will, they could arrest him. But it'll be for corruption or something like that. It won't be for war crimes. There's a lot of internal turmoil within Israel at the moment. No question about it. And so that could result in the arrest of Netanyahu. Absolutely. Oh, okay. Gala's got a question. All right. Well, so there you go. That's my thoughts on Netanyahu. I don't think he'll ever be arrested for war crimes. I do think there is a chance of him being arrested and jailed on some kind of corruption charge in Israel. I do think that is very, very possible. I think that's very, very possible. Next question. Your views on Marx and primitive socialism. I assume that you were referring to primitive communism, right? So the Marxist historical materialist analysis is that the majority of human existence, the overwhelming majority of human existence, was hunter-gatherer civilization. When we lived in tribes of 20 to 30 people, and we hunted and gathered in order to survive. And that was the overwhelming majority of, human life, human existence. We lived as hunter-gatherers. And that the term Marx used to describe hunter-gatherer civilization was, he said it was primitive communism, in the sense that there was pretty much total equality among those tribes. If you were the one to hunt the animal, you might get the nicest cut of meat. If you were an elder, you might have gotten, a bigger share of food because you were respected, because you were an elder, because you had wisdom. But aside from like some kind of traditional hierarchies that existed within those tribes, everyone was equal, right? Everyone had to pull their weight, and there was no traditional family and traditional patriarchy. There was no private ownership, and it was just 20 or 30 people with a very short life expectancy who wandered around hunting and gathering. And that was primitive communism or primitive communalism. And it was based on a very extreme level of scarcity. You can't imagine the amount of work that people had to do in order to survive during those times. They did not have any free time. Just finding enough food to eat to keep living was what occupied all of their time. They spent their entire lives, when they were not sleeping, they were hunting and gathering. They were gathering fruits and vegetables and nuts to eat, and they were hunting wild animals to eat, and they were hunting and gathering all day long. The amount of labor that they had to do in order to just survive is massive, and they were barely struggling, and they relied on each other. Human beings, if you were not in a tribe, you died. There was no way you could survive on your own as a hunter-gatherer. And so it's interesting because a lot of people look at hunter-gatherer civilization. This is a critique that I want to make of the standard narrative. And they say it was totally anti-authoritarian. Now, it was egalitarian. There were no classes within the tribes. There might have been some level of rank, but not really. But people say it was, but it was egalitarian in the sense no one was exploiting anybody else. They were all kind of in it together, eating and sharing whatever they hunted and gathered with each other. But people say it was not authoritarian. And I would really beg to differ with that. If you're relying on other people in order to eat, and you're living a daily battle just to have proper calorie intake by going around and hunting and gathering, if somebody's not pulling their weight, if somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do, you're going to have an issue with it. And the consequences are going to be quite extreme. And, I would really, really doubt that you would describe hunter-gatherer civilization as not authoritarian. I can imagine that it was quite authoritarian. in its practices. The expectations that every member of the community pull their weight so they could just live and eat another day was massive. And that's one thing that I think a lot of what's interesting is that hunter-gatherer civilization was a very low level existence, a very low level of life expectancy, a very low level of human population. I mean, there may have been less than 1 million human beings during those times, right? I mean, we're talking about a very low population, a very, very low chance of surviving birth, right? A very high infant mortality rate. I mean, we're talking about very primitive conditions, no technology that we can speak of, right? I mean, towards the end of hunter-gatherer civilization, they started to develop tools and such, but it's like for the bulk of hunter-gatherer existence, human beings were barely surviving. And, you know, people look at that, and that there is a wing of leftists and Marxists who look at hunter-gatherer civilization as the good old days, right? As like, oh, that's what we need to return to. No, we would like to return to an egalitarian society, sure, where no one's exploiting anybody else, but we want to return to an egalitarianism that is based on abundance, where everyone has everything that they need. We want to return to an egalitarianism where it's not that you have to work 24 hours a day just to live another day. It's where people can just do what they feel like doing because there's vast abundance. That primitive communism, hunter-gatherer civilization, was based on extreme scarcity because the mode of production was hunting and gathering. There was no agriculture. There was no domestication of animals. There was definitely no technology. There was no industry. You were just going around hunting and gathering all day. Whereas higher communism, the ultimate stage of a classless world, is based on so much abundance existing that there's almost no obligation. So these are very, very different, very, very, very different things. And that it is somewhat disturbing to see how, you know, some people on the left, they get into this noble savages thing and they act like hunter-gatherer civilization was amazing. Now, there was certainly a lot more empathy, probably, because people were so reliant on each other, and there was a lot less individualism of any kind. I mean, people probably were so dependent on the collective that their ability to even think about their own individual aspirations was very, very limited. But the idea that that was a better way of being or something, I don't know where these people are coming up with that. One thing, though, is that when people use the term matriarchy, right? Those tribes that did exist, they worshipped a female god, right? And that's interesting, right? That is one thing about those hunter-gatherer tribes. And they did pay a lot of attention to the stars. They did apparently have quite a bit of knowledge of astronomy, and they tended to worship some kind of mother goddess because women gave birth. And so they thought women were, you know, were more spiritual or more connected with spiritual forces than men were. And so they tended to worship some kind of mother goddess. They tended to have a female deity. And that a lot of feminists will emphasize that during those times, there wasn't exactly inequality of the sexes in the sense that we think of it now. There was not a patriarchy. There was not an institution of marriage. They didn't keep track of whose child was whose. Every child that was born was just a child of the whole tribe, of the whole community. You know, there was no private property to be passed down when people died. So it's interesting. That's all I can say. You know, but there you go. There you go. Now, Gala is asking, any thoughts on people leaving Twitter and moving to Blue Sky? AI training and Trumpers seem to trigger a lot of people. Why do libs hate Elon so much? Well, there's a lot there. Right. First of all, I can't comment on the Blue Sky thing because I haven't followed it. You know, I really haven't. I do know that Elon Musk controls Twitter and he took ownership of it. And when he took ownership of it, he arranged what looks like some kind of limited hangout. They revealed that Twitter had been manipulated by the FBI against Donald Trump and in favor of Joe Biden. And they revealed to what extent the federal agencies were manipulating Twitter before he acquired it, before he made it into X. And that was an important revelation. But what's also important is at no point did they say, and now we're not doing this. They didn't say that. And Elon Musk also tweeted about how much he loves the FBI. So there is still coordination between Twitter and the intelligence agencies and the deep state to some degree, but not as it was before. And I guess Elon Musk wanted to make it public that there had been very undemocratic meddling in what Americans got to see. What is clear is that at this point, Twitter is still controlled, but it's not controlled in the same way, right? And that's, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, they're all following a Democratic Party script. Twitter is following somebody's script. It's still being controlled. There's still shadow bans. There's still stuff like that, but it's not the same, right? It's a little bit more independent, and it's allowing Trumper content, right? And that's interesting to me. And I don't quite know, what to make of that exactly. Why do they hate Elon Musk? Elon Musk, I would argue, has really worked hard to present himself as kind of the libertarian fantasy of an industrialist, right? Elon Musk wants to market himself to conservatives, to people that are studying business. He wants you to think that he's Andrew Carnegie. He wants you to think he's Howard Rourke in an Ayn Rand novel. He's John Galt. He's this free-willing, non-conforming, wild guy full of crazy ideas. He wants you to think, wow, if only I could fulfill my potential, I could be Elon Musk. It's a cultivated image. I think Elon Musk is very much, I'm sure he's had many great ideas in his life. He's done a lot of things, but he also comes from privilege, and he certainly started from a certain level of wealth and all of that, and that his image is very manufactured. When you have that much money and all of that, you don't just get on the internet and speak your mind. There's people working with you to cultivate everything you do and frame it in a certain way. And Elon Musk has worked very, very hard to cultivate and frame a certain image around himself. That's clear. And that Elon Musk has very much, cultivated the image. He's not self-made, but he wants you to think he is. He's not Thomas Edison, but he wants you to think he is. And he's very much tried to present himself as this kind of maverick dissident and all of that. And he has taken that into the Trump world, right? If you listen to his rhetoric around the Trump campaign, he got solidly behind Donald Trump, and he started really pushing the kind of libertarian free market, I am a free market. I'm the incarnation of the American dream and the free market. And that's what liberals hate, because liberals are against growth. Liberals are against that because they're against economic growth at this point. They want they want further poverty. They want folks to get poorer, because they want to, in the name of global warming or whatever, and that's where they're at. And it's shocking to me, but that's kind of where the left is. The left is anti-progress, anti-growth, and Elon Musk has marketed himself, as being a self-made, hardworking industrialist, right? He wants to be a captain of industry, right? That's the image that he presents for himself. So hope that was a helpful answer, Gala. That's my assessment of things. All right. Peace is the only way to make America great again is 10 for 10. Well, thank you. How do we get Zionists who are against the Ukraine war to see the human tragedy and waste in both wars? Many think it's prophecy. Well, you have to... I'll just tell you this. I think that the majority of Trump's supporters would still support Trump if he turned against Israel. The overwhelming majority would. And in fact, there's a rising number of anti-Israel Trumpers like Candace Owens, like Nick Fuentes, and others. And that there are many people in the Trump camp, Roman Catholics and others, who are open to anti-Israel views. If not, they're just kind of ambivalent. They're just like, okay, well, I guess we're supposed to support Israel. And the woke Palestine rallies are not helping, because the Palestine rallies are being framed in a way that is specifically designed to alienate them. But at the same time, I think that there's a layer of like people that are very, very pro-Israel because they are Jewish Zionists, right? And, they support Trump because, they are lower level capitalists here. They own property in Brooklyn. They own property in Tel Aviv. They own like real estate in Israel, and they own real estate in the United States. And there's a layer of those folks, and a lot of them don't hate Russia, and they're, they know Russian speaking Israelis who they're good friends with, and they, whatever. There's those folks. And then there's a layer of people that are evangelicals, like Mike Huckabee, who was just appointed to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel. Mike Huckabee he's a religious fanatic who's been cultivated by Israel. He goes over there and he's a foreign agent. I mean, if there's ever a foreign lobbyist, a foreign agent, it's Mike Huckabee. He's been going over to Israel, and they've cultivated him, and he's just made it his job to sell Israel to Southern Christian conservatives, right? And he's just and he says crazy things. There's no such thing as a Palestinian. There's no such thing as a settlement. I mean, he just says all this crazy, crazy, over-the-top Zionist stuff. Nikki Haley, people like that. These people, they're not going to change. They are of a certain viewpoint. But I think the overwhelming majority of the people in the Trump camp are not like that. This is a very small minority of people. They do have a lot of money. And they have a lot of influence in Republican circles because of their money. And I mean, there's a friend of mine who, is a Trump staffer, right? Is a young guy that I've worked with. And he talked about how insane it is that your typical Trump volunteer is from a Christian background, usually grew up religious. Maybe he's not religious now or whatever, but he at least grew up religious. And a lot of them are critical of Israel. A lot of them, they see Zionism as almost a form of political correctness that they want to rebel against. They don't appreciate the super sensitivity around Israel and the Holocaust and all of that. But at the same time, you will lose your job. I mean, if you work for Turning Points USA, if you work for any Republican organization, you're anti-Israel, you're out of there. Daily Wire got rid of Candace Owens. They just ousted her, right? That there is money where supporting Israel is a red line all across conservative circles, but that does not reflect the actual sentiment among Trumpers. And in fact, a lot of Trumpers either say it's not our business. Vivek Ramaswamy, listen to Vivek Ramaswamy. His position is interesting. He says Israel is defending its borders. He says, but it's not our job, right? And he's saying we should cut off all aid to Israel and they should deal with their own problems. Now, he's saying he supports Israel and what they're doing is right, which I don't agree with. But he's saying also it's not our job. And that's very, very interesting. That is very, very interesting to me. And Vivek Ramaswamy, he has leaned into a lot of Trump-style messaging in a very kind of slick way. And he's kind of presented himself. And again, that shows there's an audience for that. He spoke up, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's now going to run the Department of Government, what is it called? The Department of Government Expenditures or whatever, right? The DOGE, right? He is actually going to be running it. So he's got a high rank in the Trump, incoming administration. The Department of Government Waste, or the Department of Government Efficiency. That's what it is. The Department of Government Efficiency. And Vivek is going to be running it with Elon Musk. And Vivek Ramaswamy, he spoke up against the cancel culture of anti-Israel students and against the doxing of anti-Israel students on the campuses. And again, he says he supports Israel, but it's not America's business. That's been his position, which is a very interesting position to take. And I think, again, we need to find our way into Trumper circles. We need to talk to Trumpers about these issues. And if we just join the anti-Trump movement, the left ain't going to listen to us. You think the left is going to listen to us? That woke clown show, you think they're going to listen to us? but we need to find a way into Trumper circles to address these issues. And that I think beneath the surface, Trump is just becoming a lightning rod for everyone who's at odds with the establishment. That's what he's becoming. If you're at odds with the American government, with the American establishment, Trumpism is becoming a catch-all. It's kind of like American Peronism, right? You compare Donald Trump is kind of like an American Juan Perón in our age, right? Juan Perón was this military leader in Argentina who became kind of the people's champion against the elites, and the communists sometimes supported him. There was left Peronists and right Peronists that fought each other in the streets a lot because they had different interpretations. I could see that happening. I could see there being left Trumpers and right Trumpers. There's anti-Israel Trumpers and pro-Trumpers already. I mean, Trumpism is a lot like Peronism. Read the history of Argentina and about Juan Perón, and you're going to start to understand what's going on with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is becoming the symbol of populism, anti-establishment sentiments, the aspirations of the middle class against the rich. But it's not a class movement, right? It's not a working class movement. It's not an anti-imperialist movement. It certainly has more of an opening for anti-imperialists, and we need to influence it as much as we can, but it's not an anti-imperialist movement. It is kind of a populist mobilization against the American imperialist state apparatus that represents layers of the levels of the ruling class, lower levels of capital, middle class, elements. There's obviously a lot of working class support for it. There are certain constituencies that Trump is always trying to please, including very bad ones like Miami Cubans and anti-Iran, the Shahs of Sunset Park, and the Israeli hard right Netanyahu's, but also, a lot of, it's mixed, right? It's very, very mixed, and that the Trump coalition is very, very broad, but it is kind of everyone that is at odds with the American deep state. And the American deep state is desperate right now because imperialism is in crisis. And, we talk about all of that in this pamphlet that we've been giving out. Do you believe in growth? We've been explaining this is because of the tendency of the falling rate of profit and the problem of the value crisis or overproduction. And there's a reason for all of these things. This is the breakdown of the irrational system of production organized for profit. Profits in command. And the only way out of it is to have a popular state that controls the economy in order to ensure economic growth. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. That is the only way to hold off the danger of a new world war and the emerging low-wage police state, right? And that is ultimately what is needed. We need to build an anti-monopoly coalition that fights for a government of action. A government of action that fights for working families. That is ultimately what we need. And this is rooted in technology. This is rooted in the breaking down of imperialism. And it creates an important opening for us, but we have to seize the moment. And if we don't seize the moment, we're letting it go. And that there is a lot of laziness in politics right now. I will say this, right? And that the way to be famous on social media is not to think, right? It's not to think about solutions. It's not to wrangle with big questions. It's to look at what people already think and say it in kind of a shrill or creative way. And if you do that, you're not really making a contribution because people already think that. And you're just kind of making it more shrill and more intense. And it's not productive. It's not helpful to do that. If you want to make a contribution, you need to teach people something. You need to wrangle with big questions, and people are not doing it. Do you think a term limit constitutional amendment could pass? At this time, no, right? To pass a constitutional amendment, you need 2/3 of the state legislatures to pass it. That's not going to happen. There's not 2/3 of the state that would approve Trump to get another term. Passing a constitutional amendment is a very, very difficult thing to do. It's a very, very, very difficult thing to do. Very difficult. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. I don't see it happening. All right, folks, this isn't going to be the longest stream we've ever done, but it was an important topic. A lot of people were here tonight. And so on that note, I am going to put on the closing music, but I'll be back very soon. Keep your eye out for the big drop that is happening either tomorrow or the next day. We're working on it as fast as we can. It's going to be really important, especially in light of recent events. It's going to be very important. So keep your eye out for that. CPI is on the move. Join the Center for Political Innovation. Membership is once again open. Talk to you soon. A new upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.